The Jersey Shore shark attacks of 1916 were so unexpected, so sudden, and so violent that they stuck in the public eye like a splinter and never really left. The Matawan man-eater, as the shark was called, claimed between 3 and 5 human lives before the killings finally stopped, and by that time the word shark had taken on a dark significance among beach-goers. Today, we're looking at the shark story that inspired Jaws. But before we do, be sure to chum our waters and subscribe to the Weird History channel and dangle some comments into the fray. Okay, let's get started. Once upon a time, there was a killer shark that terrorized the shores of the Garden State for 12 horrible days. Chief Brody's shark story, while not as soul-punishing as Quint's, is no less true. It began with the death not of a skinny dipper, but a finance broker named Charles Van Sant. He was swimming in the Atlantic one hot July day when a shark took a bite out of his leg and fatally severed his femoral artery. The creature was bizarrely aggressive, following a stolen prize as rescuers dragged it to shore. The whole thing was just so darn weird, officials declared, that it could only have been a freak accident. 5 days later, bellboy Charles Bruder would make victim number 2, leaving his friends with these chilling final words: "A shark bit me, bit my legs off." The shark abandoned the beach for the calmer waters of nearby Matawan, a charming little borough straight out of Huckleberry Finn adventure. In the town's freshwater creek, he would find his next 3 meals, all prepubescent boys with wooden hoops and broom switches. 11-year-old Lester Stillwell went first. He told his friends to watch him float. Instead, they looked on in horror when he bobbed up and down like a jack-in-the-box as the shark, whom we're beginning to think may have been Pennywise the Clown all along, went about the messy business of eating him and then making him float. 24-year-old Stanley Fisher jumped in like Superman and tried to help the distressed boy back to land, but no one told him there was a 300-pound shark swimming around in there too. He had to find that one out for himself. Making for the ocean again, the shark had one more for the road, Joseph Dunn, age 12. This time he satisfied himself with only a drumstick, though, and Joseph survived. Now, the people of Matawan knew there might be a shark in the creek before this happened. A grizzled old sea captain saw the shark swimming in from the ocean, but when he tried to warn the town, they decided that it was impossible, and they blamed his visions on the heat. To be clear, great white shark attacks in the U.S. are not very common. You're more likely to be killed by bees than sharks, and most shark attacks aren't fatal. We know this is going to come as a shock, but what happened in Jaws is not at all typical of shark attacks. After 5 attacks in less than 2 weeks, the hunt was on. The ocean soon teemed with mobs or schools of fishermen armed with dynamite and eager for vengeance and glory. Now, they had no idea what kind of shark they were even looking for, but they certainly weren't going to let such petty quibbles get in the way of their almost holy mission. Folks were beginning to think of sharks as actual avatars of evil. Enter lion tamer / taxidermist. Oh yes, friends and neighbors, Michael Schlesser. While he was fishing in Raritan Bay, an 8-foot shark tried like hell to sink his boat. He managed to keep it afloat, finally stabbing the shark to death with a broken oar like a boss. Dr. Frederick Lucas, the hooper of this tale, dissected it to study the contents of its stomach. Sharks are like garbage cans. If garbage cans had armor plating, 5 to 15 rows of serrated teeth, and the ability to use blood as a homing beacon. But sharks can and will eat just about anything. His bite radius may have been small, but that didn't stop him from eating an airplane, something beyond the capabilities of the most ambitious of sharks. Records report the recovery of 15 pounds of human remains from the belly of the beast, including the shin bone of a young boy and probably a human rib. Surely, unbiased by the area's need for capital, authorities declared they were satisfied that this was indeed the shark they were looking for, and the hunt was ended, but the damage was done. Shockingly, sharks have not always struck fear in the hearts of the masses. For a long time, scientists believed that sharks not only would not, but most of the time could not kill human beings, despite the fact that we're all soft, fleshy meat sticks that can't breathe water without getting very, very dead. Word of the odd occasional attacks circulated, but these were dismissed as tall tales, and some of the ballsier customers even went so far as to try to get sharks to attack in order to make the point that they couldn't attack. The sharks, who, believe it or not, don't do super great with human aggression, would swim away, thus reinforcing the idea that there was no such thing as a man-eating shark. Even when the New Jersey attacks first began, scientists refused to believe it was a shark. Perhaps it was an orca, they suggested, or another big sea critter. They were more than willing to pin the whole thing on, seriously, a giant turtle, than accept that sharks could eat people. It was not until the body count began to climb with witnesses that scientists began to realize they were chasing a shark. If all of this sounds a little bit familiar, it should. The story was so violent, so unexpected, and so important to the way we view sharks that it helped writer Peter Benchley bring his chilling story to life. Jaws was published in 1974 after Benchley saw a photo of a fisherman posing with a porker in 1964. Like the movie, the novel references the 1916 attacks, and although he adamantly maintains they were not his initial inspiration for writing the book, they had a big hand in how it was written. Unlike the movie, the behavior and types of attacks detailed in the book closely mirror many things that happened in real life, way back in 1916. Without the Jersey shark attacks of 1916, our fears of sharks would not have been so grippingly visceral, and stories like Jaws would not likely have been so terrorizing or successful. So, silver lining? Oddly, Peter regrets writing his famous book. While it brought him fame and fortune, he didn't really know much about sharks at the time, relying on the events of 1916 to model proper shark behavior. But the 1916 attacks were downright bizarre and atypical of shark behavior, and Jaws only served to fuel the fires of shark genocide.
Well, you son of a...
When the movie Jaws came out, its impact may not have been as severe as that of the New Jersey attacks, but there was still a serious impact. The stigma against sharks was revived in glowing color, especially against great whites. The movie portrayed sharks as vengeful and as actively seeking out human flesh to munch on. Seeing the movie, spectators were inclined to believe it and began to see sharks as evil. More than that, they were less likely to vacation near beaches the summer after Jaws was released, which again had an impact on resort towns. The impact on sharks was devastating as well. Fishing contests about who could kill the biggest shark sprang up all along the coasts. Shark populations fell as much as 50% in some locations and up to 90% in one case. As they had in 1916, sharks were seen as perpetual villains, and the stigma lingers. This is where the story should end, but a lot of questions have been raised over the years about the shark that committed these acts. Great whites don't go nosing around for food in creeks, and it is very rare for a single shark to kill so many people, especially in such a short period of time. It's been suggested that the killings were not done by one shark, but by a group or shiver, which would go a long way toward explaining why they happened so rapidly in multiple locations. Maybe Schleicher's shark was the fall guy. The shark would also have had the power to be in several places at once. There's a horrifying thought. Witnesses reported seeing sharks in multiple locations over very little time. That could have been partially due to hysteria over the deaths, but after what happened in 1916, it's probably a bad idea to write them off again. It's also been suggested that the shark was not a great white, but a bull shark, which have been known to be more aggressive towards people and are now well known for their attacks, as well as being capable of traveling through salt and fresh water. The waters of a creek, for example. In the end, all the details about this weird spree of shark attacks may never be known. What is known is the impact these events had and how it still affects the public's perception of sharks to this day. With his tacky suit and deliberate obtuseness, the mayor of Amity Island is a character we love to hate.
Tomorrow's the 4th of July, and we will be open for business.
But he had a valid point. Resort towns like Amity and the Jersey Shore depend on tourists for survival. Whether Schleicher's shark was a serial killer or just got really peckish one day, the vicious attacks changed the lives of not only the 4 victims and their loved ones, but everyone in business on the shore. Beaches closed, bringing the economy to a standstill as they waited for the shark hunt to end. Now relegated to buffet lines for sharks, these once lively burgs lost their glamour and fell into decay. Resort owners estimated a total loss of over $250,000. Boy, that doesn't sound like much, but it was in 1916, right? Even after the offending shark was, in theory anyway, caught, people tended to avoid the beaches, not terribly eager to find out firsthand. Some enterprising businesses had a go at embracing the legend, promoting art that showed smiling sharks to promote a child-friendly environment. But some resort towns just shut down, unable to pull in enough money to get by. It's been over 100 years since then, and folks still know Matawan as that town where 5 people got eaten. Some people have even argued that the attacks and deaths tanked President Woodrow Wilson's campaign for re-election. As the beachfront communities rotted away, the voters there were understandably less than stoked to vote for him again. As we said, sharks are basically swimming trash cans. They're perfect killing machines, but they aren't malicious, although we could argue that with their dead little eyes, it might be a bit less creepy if they were. If you take anything away from this, it ought to be that hanging around and eating people is not your typical shark's MO. Sharks are far more likely to stay away from humans, and they certainly do not go out seeking human flesh. We're pretty scary and we don't taste super great. Sharks are predators of opportunity and prefer to grab what they can get and haul ass out of there if things get too exciting. You're more likely to get hurt stepping in a hole at a beach, be killed by bees, be kicked or gored to death by a deer, or even savaged by a cow than you are to end up a shark snack. It's the sharks that really ought to organize. Humans kill millions of them every year, to say nothing of the garbage we dump in their backyard. Even on the sea, we're apex predators. If a shark does decide to come at you, you have a pretty good shot at not getting eaten. The vast majority of shark attacks end in minor injuries, and while pants-loadingly frightening, rarely leave more than a mental and physical scarring. Seldom do more than 1 or 2 shark attacks result in serious injury or death. The fact that the 1916 killings are ones we're still talking about today just goes to show how few of these shark attacks are man-eaters. So before you go the way of the chief, rest assured, you're more likely to end up in a confrontation with the business end of a jellyfish if you brave the ocean than you are a killer shark. So will you be dipping your toes in the ocean this year? Let us know your biggest fear, and while you're at it, check out some of these other videos from our weird history.